core values that's needed, because without those core values, brother, we will be dragged from here to there, to here to there, to everywhere, and can find ourselves doing anything for a dollar. But I think that when you have an idea, or at least a concept, and for me, it's my faith, uh, that's the concept that I hold on to. That's the concept that I'm working out, because ultimately it is about living a disciplined life. The bulk of what most of us are dealing with, it absolutely comes from the dynamics of our family. And so those were my findings.
With me today is Curtis Brooks. He helps high achieving men with integrated leadership, authentic masculine presence, and men's relationship health. So there'll be a lot of interesting topics that we'll cover today, and I feel like Curtis is the right person to kind of guide us through this journey. So, Curtis, first of all, tell me, how did you started your journey, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, great question. I started my journey probably as a uh, probably as a youth, man. To be honest, uh, not growing up with a biological father, and
Hmm.
truly missing that part of my life. And remember, even as a teenager, felt like I was on a hunt for that, looking to close that gap, so to speak. And for just all intents and purposes, I felt there was like a loss, still a gap, even when looking, because a lot of the ideas or that I may have had just didn't match up with the people who I was meeting, and I found myself trying to put people in those places to fill those gaps in my own life, and for some the burden was too heavy, and then so later on I would find out in life, just life happening, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of life, that I would absolutely have to become the man, the father, the brother, the son, that I was looking for. And so that was the beginning of the work, and that's the truth. I was no marketing plan or anything like that, but that was truly the beginning of the work. And so here I am, working and doing what I love to do, actually.
It's always great to be in the position where you do what you love because every day it doesn't feel like work. You're contributing, and it's a rewarding feeling, that kind of contribution going
Right,
back and
right.
forth, and especially when you're working with high achieving men. What are some of the first conversations when you have with someone that comes to you and says, "I need some help, I need some guidance"? How does that typically start?
Well, it first starts with, ideally for us as men, a lot of times we, you see the picture of the bullhorn sometimes, uh, and the bull going at each other with another bull. But for us as men, for me, it typically starts with de-escalating any idea, any notion. And so, for me as an executive coach, ideally I have to play it small. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't take anything away from me, because I know the outcome. I know myself as a man. I know in most cases another man, and how we sometimes approach things. And just in the space of not knowing, in the space of feeling uncomfortable. And so, or in some instances, in the space of just this being a new thing for them. And so, ideally, again, they've got their defenses up, and I've got to let them know that it's safe to put your defenses down, and let's have a man-to-man talk. And we're here to fix that thing, or make adjustments to that situation, so there is no judgment.
Right, right. It's a place of no judgment, but you're trying to tell someone you can lower your guard, put your defenses down, and let's talk,
Absolutely.
de-escalate a situation. And that's the key thing. You said it typically starts when there is a situation that got out of hand, and then you're called in to de-escalate and then to help
Mhm.
people navigate. What are some of the things that if someone is listening to this and they're a high achieving man in a corporate environment? I know one of my friends. He was a VP and he didn't get along with the other VP.
Mhm.
And the moment that relationship deteriorated, basically the quality of life. His every day was like, I hate going to work. I hate working with that
Mhm.
guy. what do you try to guide? What is the first advice you tell to those two guys or two men? This is how we want to do this.
Well, in most cases for me, and just my the actual my business name is called It's Not Rocket Science Coaching, and that name came about. Just kind of give you some background, a little bit of background. That name came about that I actually was talking with a former business colleague, and I said, it's very interesting, and just my findings and just my time and where I'm just kind of creating that space just where I can just think. I had this epiphany. I said, wow, most of what we're dealing with comes from our families. And she said, and I said, well, it's not like it's rocket science. And so she says, why don't you name it? It's Not Rocket Science Coaching. And that's where the name came from. And so back to your question, uh, I typically will approach it from the space of what was your family life looking like? And that tells me mounds and mounds of stuff in regards to if their father showed up, if father was aggressive, if father was not as aggressive, if mom was aggressive, that says a lot. And so the bulk of what most of us are dealing with, it absolutely comes from the dynamics of our family. And so those were my findings.
So if we're going back to that place, and let's say we have someone that is a young entrepreneur, they are going on the journey. What are some of the advice that you would tell that father to guide his son to not come to you in 20, 30 years to talk about de-escalating situations? How would you tell that father, this is what you want to do as a business owner, as you're raising your kids, so that they
Right.
grow up in a strong man?
Right. Great question. I think first and foremost, I absolutely would not steer anyone away from any advice, be it from me or anyone else, because as a man, life can just throw you some curveballs that in most cases dad can't prepare us for. That's just life, and it's like someone trying to prepare for their child. Brand new child being born, and you just a new mom or even a seasoned mom, to a degree, may know certain things, but there's just things you just cannot prepare for. And you're going to need counseling at times, sometimes, not necessarily laying on someone's couch, obviously, but you're going to need that. You can use that sound advice. I still talk with friends at times and asking, hey man, what do you think about this? Whatever you think, what do you think about that? So you're absolutely going to need that. So I would probably just say, find a close circle who is going to uh, not give you the fluff of life. That's going to give you the things that you really need to hear, and be prepared to be honest with yourself. I think so much of what we go through is the illusion that that's been created, that we help to even facilitate all the more. In most cases, once it's been created by this society that we live in, and the powers that be, even through movies and things of that nature, once those illusions have been created, we as people, in most cases, we will take on those illusions ourselves and fill in the gaps, because most of the illusions and the things that have been created are to a large degree ambiguous. And so we have a tendency to fill in those gaps, the things that are missing, because ideally it's a story that we don't know the ending to it, nor do we know the beginning of it. But for the most part, because we don't know the beginning or the ending, we will typically create our own beginning, create our own ending, and still yet try to build our own stories around that which was given to us, rather than knowing ourselves to create our own stories.
When we're going through this journey of creating our story, and I know of the hero journey, I've heard that one before in the past. Um, do you see a pattern where men are not honest with themselves at a specific circle of that hero's journey? Would that be the beginning or the big problem they need to face?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes with the territory, man. And it's nothing, I don't think it's anything that men set out to do themselves, to, put themselves in this place where they're fooling themselves, not telling themselves the truth, or being dishonest. I don't think it's something that they do. I think it's just something that, again, as I say, the powers that be, because believe it or not, man, there's just so much stuff going on in the world, and uh, a lot of what we see is intentional. It's an intentional distraction, and a lot of us don't look at it like that. We think that we're ourselves, in a sense that, hey, this is how I feel. You'd be surprised at how much stuff is out there, when we as men don't have our own values, are not secure in our own values. And again, to no fault of our own fathers and their fathers and their fathers, in most cases, have not been secure in their own values. And because they weren't secure, ideally, we find ourselves, it can feel like we're walking around aimlessly. And again, this is not a dig at men. It's just the nature of life. And without these, without a solid foundation called, or labeled as our values, we can absolutely find ourselves wandering and trying to figure out life, and picking up and taking what, ideally, what someone else gives you, because we don't know ourselves, or we're not secure within our own values. And so we can end up finding our own, creating an identity out of the story that they've given us. Again, adding, whether it be adding to the beginning of it, adding to the end of it. But to your point, becoming our own hero in the story, but yet at the same time trying to figure out the next moves for which the story they've created. What does the hero do next? Because typically we don't know the end of the story, because the movie is only like an hour, 45 minutes. So,
Very interesting analogy. Now, I had two questions as you were saying that. First one I want to ask is, have you seen a set of core values in every great high-performing man that you've worked for? That you're like, this is what I've seen, and I feel like I see the pattern. They're all great high-performing men, and they all have these core values.
Great question, man. For me, to be honest, it's my faith that keeps me grounded. It's been my faith for just feels like eons. But I think for me, in that search, or that hunt, to find a man that I could stand on his shoulders, and learn some things from. I think the challenge a lot of times is that when we put so much weight in men, and myself included, I'm no one savior or anything like that. So when we put so much hope in men, knowing that they too, in most cases, have succumbed to the an identity that they have not created of their own. Again, most of us have created, or the saying, the mother of inventions is what? Necessity. Is oftentimes we create things, or whether it be our own identities, or I'm going to deal with this situation in this particular matter, or just a physical item. As people, we will mostly create things out of necessity. And so because we create things out of necessity, I think there becomes a moral value to life. And a man just can't, or shouldn't just do anything to, call it, oh, I'm a man, this is living. I think there is absolutely a moral code to life. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us men don't uphold it. And it's not just men, no, don't get me wrong, it's people. It's a people thing. And myself included. I mean, and what I mean by that is that none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. But I think that when you have an idea, or at least a concept, and for me, it's my faith, that's the concept that I hold on to. That's the concept that I'm working out, because ultimately it is about living a disciplined life.
When you're when you're putting it like that, it's a very kind of clear path where you're saying your faith keeps you grounded. You're standing on shoulders of giants or great men. You're accepting that you're not perfect. You're living a disciplined life. How does one start the journey to discover themselves, to remove what was assigned to them out of necessity, what they've assigned to themselves? How do they start breaking those walls?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think that initially it starts off with men prepared to, being prepared to notice recognize the pattern in their own lives. And for us as men, or just women in general as well, if you've got a pattern where you got one broken relationship after another broken relationship, it's time to slow down and ask some questions. You know, if you find yourself not getting along with people, um, be it in the workplace or with your own family, it's time to slow down and ask some pertinent questions. And I think the challenge with that a lot of times is that we as people, not just men, but we as people, we 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 have a tendency to cover up the sore areas, those sore spaces that potentially could be that potentially could be exposed. We have a tendency to cover them up, and covering those areas up could be drinking. It could be taking, you know, drugs, or I could be being over, you know, relationships. You know, just one relationship after the other, and looking for essentially almost looking for a fix. You know, will this person fix me? Will this item fix me? And will this, you know, behavior fix me? And at some point, I believe that scientific term we call entropy, it begins to set in. And then once it sets in, you can find just your whole world erupting, so to speak, to you know, level and degrees in different areas. Because at some point, all of this thing I think called life, it kind of comes together. It's a full circle. And as we oftentimes try to separate life in different pockets, the reality of it is that sometimes the anger that we might be dealing with, or the confusion we may be dealing with on the job, is not necessarily about the people, but about the things that we're unsettled in here and in here. And it shows up not only at the job, but it shows up at home. If it's showing up at home, it's showing up on the job. And so these are things that we just have a tendency to carry with us unknowingly. But I hope I answered the question. I think I may have gotten.
You did, because it's looking at recognizing those patterns, trying to cover up those sore areas through
Yeah,
vices at the end of the day, or
right,
lashing out and having that anger, but it's something else. You're lashing out at people and you're angry
right, right,
at work or at home.
right, right.
Now, uh, when you're talking with someone that is going through these things, or they're the you mentioned this a couple of times as we're talking, the pressure
Yeah.
that someone is holding on to. What are some of the methods or strategies or steps or guides that you take someone to, like, this is how you want to relieve some of this pressure? Because as a father, I'm a father as well. You know that that doesn't stop; it just keeps piling on. You just need to be
Right,
stronger.
right.
How to deal with it? So, what are
Absolutely.
some of the tips or guides that you do?
Well, you know, honestly, it's not necessarily it's not a secret. It's not necessarily a science, but it is a pattern that I recognize, and again, working with the men, and I apply the same pattern or concept, I should say. And really and truly, to be honest, that concept is getting men to talk, getting men to talk, and uh, reframing the question oftentimes. And a lot of times, when men are talking, their their answer is in their conversation. So it's not It's not rocket science, but the answer is in the conversation, man. Typically, and so it's getting men to talk long enough, and in most cases, using their own words to reframe the situation. And sometimes they'll have that aha moment as we're talking, but in most cases, for surely, the next time I've met with my client, they've got a completely different perspective, because sometimes the aha moment comes after. So it truly is a matter of reframing the question. But again, their answer that they're looking for, or their prescribed method of thinking that can change it, is just a matter of reframing it. And that
Now,
typically,
if someone sits across you and they're saying, I read the letters from Seneca, I read meditations from Marcus Aurelius, I believe in Stoicism, I'm a Stoic, that's how I want to take on the world and take on the life. How do you feel about Stoicism, Stoic, and all that stuff?
mhm. Great question. Hmm. Obviously, I would, let them know that, hey, that's, teach his own, basically, for sure. Um, I think that my job as a executive coach, father, husband, is not necessarily to change anyone,
Hmm.
or put enough pressure on them where, hey, you have to do it this way. But I think that when we're sharing certain things, where I'm sharing certain different conversations with a client, there's something that comes out from that conversation, and there's a typically, I like it called, there's a power that comes from it, because when we're living this life, when you're living this life, and walking the talk or talking the walk, and that, just things that I'm sharing with you now, I'm living this life. And so it's not me saying one thing and doing something completely opposite. And when talking with that person, or talking with men, or a man who may be sitting across from me, that's what I would give him. I would give him my authentic self. And I believe that's where the power comes in. That's where the power that turns up, the heat turns up, because I obviously, in my mind, I would say, hey, there's an issue with that, but I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, you're wrong. But and knowing that that doesn't work, there's a pressure button in me, in all of us, especially when you come from that place of authenticity. There's a pressure button, or a dial that the heat turns up, because it's almost like, hey, I've got to get this person out of this situation, or at least give him something that's going to make him think differently. But the idea is that, when I believe that when we as men come from that authentic place, there's power behind that, man. And when you're not walking in that authenticity, um, uh, you're less of that power, because ideally, the authenticity represents integrity. And then so when you're without that authenticity, or the integrity that encompasses the authenticity, you can find yourself being spread thin. And it's the more we are here and there and everywhere, we're less effective. But when we are headstrong on our particular values and knowing what works, we can absolutely bring the heat, turn up the power, and give that person something to chew on for that moment. And yeah.
It to me it sounds like you would ask the reason why they started leaning towards a Stoicism, or to any belief for that matter. What is the pressure point that kind of got him to that place? And then seeing if this is your true authentic self. If it is, great, fantastic. If it isn't, then again going through those conversations, because once you're
Right.
authentic, you will understand, like, is it Stoicism? Is it something else that you're shaping your kind of worldviews around for your life? Now,
Yeah.
if. if you're having a conversation with someone that is, a young guy, and he's starting his business, and um, he's feeling the pressure because his wife or partner is pregnant, and he will be a dad. What are the advices that you will give to that person to be like, hey, you'll be a dad. These are some of the things that will change in your life, and here are some tools for you to navigate around these situations, because it will change from being the business owner that you are today to the business owner father they will be very shortly.
Mhm. I would I would say to that young man is to that he needs a set of core values. He needs a set of core values, and I think that is just so important, man. Because life in itself, it feels like it comes to challenge our position a lot of times as men. It comes to challenge our thought process. It comes to challenge our core values, essentially, the pressures of life. This group thinking, this group mentality that shows up in world views or world situations, oftentimes, and that it can feel like follow the leader, so to speak, or follow the trend. And I would say to that young man, you need a set of core values and a belief system that has been proven over time. Um, and I know it's not easy. I would say let him know that he for surely is in a tough space, but it's not impossible. I would remind him of that, and really just drive home the set of core values that's needed. Because without those core values, brother, we will be dragged from here to there, to here to there, to everywhere, and can find ourselves doing anything for a dollar. And that would be unfortunate, but really just losing our own dignity because we don't have the core values. The core values, the foundation. There are things that just sometimes you just have to have your mind made up. Some things just in life have to be a solid no. There's no, it's just a no. That's just it's just the way it is, man. And I think when we don't have those core values locked in, um, we not only lose the dignity for ourselves, but whatever our spouse or significant other may have had in the way of core values towards us, and sometimes we don't know that. Whatever those core values are for our, you know, spouse or significant other, we can lose the dignity for them as well. They lose respect for us. So core values are absolutely, and yeah, that's where I would start at, man. Core values and a belief system that has been tried and true. Again, disciplining yourselves for the um, for the wave, for the just spaces that are going to be uncomfortable. And sometimes there's things that we just have to sit through in life, brother. There's some things sometimes we just have to sit through. We have to be uncomfortable. We have to feel what we feel and know that it's not a judgment call, and know that we're going to get through it.
When you're looking at, it's interesting that you're saying these like these advices, because I've now looking back at it, it's very clear. My son is 6, my daughter is 8. I've been through it, but in the beginning, I was watching all these uh, on YouTube, all these dudes that are like super successful, and they're giving their routines, and I'm like, that doesn't work. There's like that doesn't work. And I wanted to comment like, are you a dad? Do you have kids? Do you have? Because I
Right.
can have my schedule, and in the middle of the night, my son wakes up with a fever. There's no schedule that happens that
Right.
day. That's it. It changed the whole day. I would take my kids to school, and on the way, my daughter would ask something or start, and it will create into a whole. Um, I don't want to say tantrum, because at 7, 8 is more. It's much more like an argument. Now we're arguing about a thing or whatever that might be, and that kind of throws off your whole morning mood, and you need to go and walk into the next step of the next meeting. What are some of the things that you hear outside right now that you're like, those are absolutely not applicable? Those are just like ideals, or maybe they are just like projecting, and you don't want someone to fall in the trap of those advices.
Well, man, hey, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you absolutely. A lot of those things don't work, and I what I found out in my research, and honestly, and I want to just kind of go just a tad deep here for a second. What I found in my research, man, this model of leadership that the whole world, or this spell of leadership, I call it, that the world is under, it comes from the the Romans. We've gathered this idea, concept of leadership from the Romans. And this is my research here. And so, ideally, the Romans dealt with leadership in regards to controlling people. It was, in fact, controlling people. It was people under insurmountable amounts of pressure. And this is the idea, or the concept that we, even today, have known leadership is. And so, a lot of the videos that you may have watched, I probably watched the same thing, and searching and looking for answers as well. How do men deal with XYZ? And again, going back to that story that I was sharing with you, how Hollywood gives us the beginning of the story, or gives us a story, and we don't know the beginning, nor do we know the end. And so the story largely is ambiguous, and we end up having to create our own beginning and ending, and but still wanting to mirror what we have seen, what they've created for us in a lot of ways. And so it really is, again, going back to what I said earlier, creating a set of values. Because in most cases, the life that a lot of us are living, it's been given to us. If that makes a lot of sense, it's been given to us. And so I think largely a lot of us are just saying, you know what, this doesn't fit me anymore. I'm outgrowing this thing. And what worked in the past, but as it stands right now, I'm outgrowing this thing. To your point earlier about the video, or trying to figure out things, that the kid is crying. We don't often see remedies for that, solutions for that. We see the man who's got it all together, the man who's got multiple businesses. He's successful in every last one of his businesses. He's got the hot wife, the beautiful wife that every man wants. You know, the wife that's coveted. And so that's not what we hear. And so for me, as a father, as a husband, as that young boy, that's what I'm helping men build. That's eventually what I'm helping men build, is that part of the story that no one talks about. And that we sometimes have to come to a place, or not, we come to a place where we realize that, man, I got to do the work on this piece, because what it looks like, the story that's been created, it's been created in a way where it's been done for us. It looks like it's been done for us. And the only thing we need to do is show up. But the reality of it is that we've got to do the work, and doing the work means that we got to discipline ourselves from the things that the world is trying to set us up with. Because just think about it. Sometimes we, as men, it's acceptable for a woman to be angry sometimes, or go through what she's going through. Even my daughter, she goes through, and my wife says, babe, sometimes we just have to let her be. But so that's acceptable to a degree. But for us as men, and you're watching your young boy go through certain things, we have to be, as men, we have to be prepared to correct that behavior best way we can. Because we know to let our sons, or for us to not manage our anger, that stuff will get out of hand quickly. And when it gets out of hand quickly, now we become prisoner not only to the anger, but a prisoner to, or appearing to be a prisoner within our own household. So there's just things that we have to, as men, that are just, you can't cross that line. It might look cool, They might put it together in a way where this is what you should do. This is what's trending. Oh, how come you're not doing this? How come you don't have one? Yeah, and the whole marketing thing sometimes, and again, going back to those values, when we're not secure in those values, man, we can find ourselves chasing those things and hopping on board to, oh, you're not smoking this, you're not doing this, you're not wearing this, and oh, you're just gonna let her do you that way? You're gonna let your kids talk to you that way? You're the man of the house. All of those things that society sometimes tells us, hey, how to handle things, man. My job is to help men to deconstruct those things, because I was there too, man. I was there too. I'm not without fault, or not without succumbing to the craziness and the chaotic chaos of this world sometimes, man.
When you're going through a conversation like this, it's always a tough one because some of these topics are, you know, you kind of deal with it in four walls at home or alone. How do you start conversations with your friends, or if you're a high performing man, you're at work, or how do you talk with someone about these things because they're just in your mind and you're kind of struggling with it. What I mean by that is what society tells you and how to do it, how to raise your kids, what to say, what not to say. How do you show up at the birthday party with your kids? How do I act? What do I say? What I not? I don't want to offend anyone. I just want to show up at a birthday party,
Mm.
and that kind of stays in your mind. And it I don't want to say like it rattles you, but it stays in your mind and starts to build this pressure instead of talking about it and then kind of working around those core values that you were saying. When you are have you seen like areas that these core values should be built around? What I mean by that is one of the core beliefs that I have is hope is not a strategy.
Mhm.
The Courage to be Disliked was a fantastic book that I read. I was like, yes, I like what this guy is saying in this book, the Courage to be Disliked,
Right.
because no is a full sentence. I started doing these things, and one is more on like work related.
Mhm.
Hope is not a strategy. No is a full
Right.
sentence.
Right.
Some are showing up with my kids and being
Right.
a lot more listening. You have 2 years in one mouth, that type of
Absolutely.
attitude. Have you seen core values that people need to build in specific areas that are like these are very good? I've seen them repeating across multiple areas with a lot of people. Start working on these things, and you will see kind of a different life.
Absolutely. One of the things I wrote down too, and I think this was, and I'm looking at my phone here, so I apologize here. Um, One of the things I wrote down here is, your strength comes from your decision. And for me, um, that's again steeped in core values. One would be awareness. That would be and ideally, they can sound like they're general terms, but the reality, even coming into awareness, even coming into making a decision, I think what I've learned, man, is that it's not what it appears. It's not what it appears. And I think that I've discovered the motive behind a lot of things that are out there, man. And so that's why this self-awareness is so huge, because you have to you have to, once the cat is out the bag, so to speak, once you know certain truths, you build your core values around those things. But I think what happens a lot of times, or what has happened, is that because we don't know the motive a lot of times as men, we don't know the motive. And so we can find ourselves building our core values around a unknown, around a variable. And until we know the heart of the, I don't know, lack of a better word, I'm just going to put it out there, until we know the heart of the beast that's out there, brother, um, the heart of the opposition that's out there, we can't build our core value, or we can find ourselves building our core value on something that was never meant to stand. And so for me, coming into a truth via my faith has exposed certain things, and now I can uh, absolutely know how to move and maneuver through life.
If people listen to what you're talking and the way you approach things, how do people get a hold of you to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You can reach out to me on my website. That is going to be integrated leadership .manis.space.
Absolutely, Curtis. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for sharing all of your advice. I'll leave the link to your website in the description. And again, thank you so much and wish you all the best.